Theo Koistra, and you may vote now. And we will close voting. And we will see the results. Sadie Cordova is elected. And we will see these names on later ballots as we move forward. How are we doing with the bishop's election? Are we ready? Do we have the ballots printed yet? We ready to go with that? Or if we do not, I don't see anyone looking like they have printed ballots for us. Then, just a minute, let me find my right page. I know it'll be the treasurer's. I had notes about it somewhere. Okay. Then we'll continue with the report from our treasurer, Bruce Hutler from Our Savior's Lutheran in Sun Prairie, and the introduction of the spending plan. I think you're doing both of those?
What's that?
Are you doing both the introduction of the spending plan and the treasurer's report? Thank you.
In reverse order. Robin, do we have that or not?
Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. We are one church made up of 9,300 congregations, nearly 4 million people strong. Working together, we're achieving things on a scale and scope we could never do alone. We're reminded of our connection each time we gather at the Lord's table. Financially, we support this work with each gift we put in the offering plate. But how does that work exactly? When you give an offering, almost all of that money stays with your congregation to support its ministries, leaders, and expenses. A small but very important portion of it, less than 10% on average, is passed along to your local synod. This part of the offering is called mission support. Your synod helps to unite the congregations in your area. By working together, your synod makes sure that your congregation has the leaders it needs, and it provides a place for everyone to work together on important local initiatives. But it doesn't stop there. About half of the offerings received by the synod are then shared with your church-wide organization. For the numbers people out there, here's how it breaks down. In 2015, ELCA members gave a total of $1.8 billion in regular offerings at their congregations. Of this total, the Churchwide organization received $47.1 million, or just under 3% of those total offerings. The Churchwide portion of your mission support offering is the foundation and fuel to do God's work in the world, and this work is done on behalf of all of us. These funds are the primary way that we grow the church, sharing the love of Christ with more people in more places than ever before. Together, we are supporting almost 400 new congregations in the United States and Caribbean. Each year, we help over 100 existing congregations reinvigorate their ministries and enhance outreach in their ever-changing neighborhoods. And we're working together to foster networking for our ethnic and multicultural communities that all may share a place at the table. We wouldn't be a church without our leaders, and we realize that an investment in the future of this church begins with our future leaders. Starting with children and youth, we offer events, resources, and tools to nurture faith. Your mission support dollars support the work of 8 ELCA seminaries and 26 colleges and universities. By bringing our leaders and ideas together, our church continues its long-standing leadership in interfaith and ecumenical dialogue, so we replace fear and misunderstanding with a deeper appreciation of our common ground. We're a publicly engaged church promoting policy change and action at every level of government, countering the forces of inequality. And together, we support social ministry organizations such as Lutheran Social Services in America, which impacts the lives of 1 in 50 Americans. Our impact goes beyond the United States. As a member of the Lutheran World Federation, we're in communion with 145 member churches and directly connected to 85 companion churches in other countries. A significant portion of your offering accompanies our global companions to build new churches, equip leaders, and provide for the needs of the community. In support of this work, your offering helps send over 230 ELCA missionaries around the world, including more than 85 young adults in global mission. These missionaries are the hands and feet of Jesus around the world, serving, learning, and returning home with a valuable perspective on church and society. There's no better place to help do God's work in the world than by supporting the tremendous and creative ministry going on across our own church. By working together, we make a greater impact. Thank you for your mission support offerings and for your gifts of time and talent. We are a church that is making a difference in the world together.
All right, many of you have already seen that video many times, but based on the question we had earlier, it sounds like about 1/3 of you are new to being in assembly and probably new to seeing that. And so it just gives you a good, for those of you that are new to a synod function like this, a backdrop of really, where that offering plate goes from your, in your congregation to the synod and then to Churchwide. So I'm going to give the treasurer's report and then introduce the spending plan. The first page of the treasury report that I would ask you to look at is page 90. I don't know which is worse, to do this right before lunch or right after lunch, but you're going to be doing numbers for a few minutes here. I've got 7 slides we'll get through. The majority of those are spending plan. A few of them summarize kind of where last fiscal year ended and where we are this year. So the first slide here is mission support, and as that video showed, the congregations, receive donations, and then those congregations obviously pass that mission support to the synod here. And so the mission support on page 90, this is kind of, since the history of the synod was put together. You can see on the bottom 1989 and the most recent fiscal year 2017. Our fiscal year ends on June 30th, so we have a July 1st fiscal beginning year, is $1,461,000. That unfortunately was a decrease of $62,000, a little over 4%. Actually, unfortunately, it was the second lowest we've ever had, with the lowest being $64,000 lower in 2011. The individual congregation mission support, or what's on a congregational basis, is on pages 189 and 193 of the book. You don't need to go there, but you can just right now. But there, once a year, we publish for the assembly book what each congregation gives and passes along to the synod. You'll note in there, if you look in that on a detailed basis, the largest 2 churches that are $50,000. And so obviously it takes all the congregations here to really help support the mission support and really move that dollar amount. So the second slide here, just on kind of more of a global level. So ELCA Churchwide support for fiscal 2017, again, they have a fiscal year of January 31st. Overall mission support, well, actually, let me hold that back there. Let's go back to page 91 here. This page summarizes This page summarizes all the giving that was given by either individuals in our synod, congregations in our synod, or the synod to Churchwide. And so page 91 summarizes all that. And so for their fiscal year ended January 31st, $1.5 million generated from our synod. Now, a good portion of that obviously is the mission support of $758,000, but a couple notable points that, and not notable other areas that I'm sure you know about is hunger and poverty, the World Hunger Campaign, $347,000, and the disaster response, $281,000. But you can see on page 91 all the areas that it's more than just mission support that is generated from the synod and it goes on to Churchwide. So the next slide here is Region 5 mission support. You don't have a slide on this, but I just kind of summarize it for you. So Churchwide mission support overall, I think you've heard on the video there, so they talked about 47 million. For the last 2017 fiscal year, 44.4 million was generated worldwide. That was about just under a 2% decrease from the prior year. And so then the synods so there's 65 total synods and 12 in Region 5. And so they're organized in regions, and there's 12 in Region 5. We're primarily Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota, UP, I believe. Illinois. So the Region 5, we had total giving of 9.3 million in 2017. That was about a 395,000 decrease from the prior year, about a little over 4%. And then that video talked about what's mission support that's passed on from the synod onto ELCA, the Churchwide. They talked about a roughly 50% rate that is looked at, and so that's the most recent assembly change is 52% for our synod. The average for Region 5 is 49%, so we are definitely above the average. We historically were at 55% for many, many years, and that just changed a couple of years ago at 52%. So the next slide is kind of where we are right now at the end of March. Actually, I think when the book was put together, February was available, so I'll just summarize that and then just tell you kind of where we are at March 31st. So mission support through February 28th, and this is on pages 87, 88, and 89 of the assembly book. So mission support through February year to date, $925,000. At that point in time, that was a $19,000 increase from where we were the prior year, roughly about 2% increase, about $58,000 less than what we had budgeted, but still an increase from the prior year. Now, fast forward a month through March, we're about $30,000 behind where we were last year. So this can really change on a month-to-month basis. So we're about $30,000 behind where we were last year at this point in time, $63,000 behind what we had budgeted. In February, going back to the February slide here, the expenses, we're pretty much in line with what we had budgeted through February. We're about just over $1,000 more than the prior year. And you can see that on page, I think it's page 88. And again, I'm trying to hit the highlights. If you don't want to go into the detail of the numbers, you don't need to. But so on page 88, you can see our total expenses through February, just about a little over $1,000 more than the prior year. And so we were at a negative cash flow of $22,000 through February. Fortunately, while mission support, we trailed off in March, our expenses were much less in March, and so that deficit is only down to $10,000 negative through March, and so we did through lower expenses, we did kind of close that gap a little bit. So if you look at on page 87 of the report, the mission support, there's a mission support report, and this is in your book. You know, this shows the on the lower half of the chart, the monthly mission support. The top half of the chart is year to date. If you project out at the end of March and assume that we receive the same amounts for the next 3 months to finish our fiscal year in June 30th, that would total about $1,433,000. We had budgeted this year $1,475,000. Pretty good deficit. But frankly, there's no reason to assume that the next 3 months we're going to receive what we did last year, because this year so far hasn't suggested that. And so I'm not painting a nice picture here, but I'm telling you reality. So the spending plan is on page 115 of the assembly booklet. And those are some pretty small numbers in the book, but I'll summarize kind of the highlights of the spending plan that the Finance Board and then ultimately the Executive Committee and Synod Council is suggesting here. So, but a word of explanation on the spending plan. As I mentioned before, our fiscal year has historically been through from July 1st through June 30th. We are one of, I think, 2 synods in the ELCA that had a fiscal year that was different from than Churchwide, and they're not going to allow us to do that any longer. And so we are being asked to change our fiscal year to January 31st. And so we're doing that with this spending plan. And so the spending plan, we had a couple choices. We could do a 19-month spending plan from July 1st through January 31st, 2020. We chose to do two spending plans, a 7-month stub period and a 12-month spending plan through February 1st, 2019 through January 31st, 2020. So you'll see in what's being presented here in page 116 and 117, we have the actual for the last couple of fiscal year, actual fiscal year 2017, the year-to-date fiscal year through February, and then the current full year budget, and then the far right 2 columns, the budget for the 7 months that I spoke about, and the budget for the 12 months, February 1st through January 31st, 2020. And so, it's put yourselves in our position of, we're electing a new bishop. There's all different times, what's staff going to look like, what's, a lot of things I'll highlight here in a moment. And then we're projecting out almost 2 years from what we're sitting here in May of 2018. So, frankly, your guess is as good as mine. But we tried to do the best we could with the information presented to us. So I've only got 2 sheets, one more page to go through. And so the spending plan for July 1st through January 31st, 2020, we have to start with what we assume for mission, we receive for mission support. We have, and I guess just a note of clarification here too, that far right column, which is a 12-month spending plan for February 1st through January 31st, 2020. We use that as kind of the base, and that 7-month stub period in the column to the left of that is more or less 7/12 of the column to the right. We didn't really have any more level of precision. The only things that we knew for certain for that period was we had a little bit more precision on staffing costs and rent. We knew what the rent was going to be, and so those are the two things we knew about. But for most of the rest of it, it's 7/12 of the column to the right. So mission support. Obviously, we have to start with what we think the mission support will be, the available funds to the Synod. You'll see, I guess, on page 115, I guess it is, the top line there, where we have mission support of $1,460,000. That's, as our Savior is part of the Finance Committee, you know, we're definitely faith-based budgeting discipline. And I would tell you that the 1,460,000 is definitely faith-based, given that it looks like at by the end of this fiscal year, we're at 1,430,000, and certainly the trend is down. And so I would suggest to you that we're being optimistic with that mission support. So that's kind of our starting number. And as you recall, you know, that mission support, which is provided by the congregations to us, we passed 52% of that along to Churchwide, and then 6.2% to seminaries, and 6.2% to Lutheran campus ministry. So in other words, for every dollar of mission support we receive, the Synod keeps 35.6 cents of that. So if you do the math in reverse, if you need to gross that up to increase any revenue that as for the Synod. And so, $2, we would need $2.80 of additional mission support for every dollar of mission support we keep in the Synod. So that's why when I say that, you know, if you look at the congregational by congregational giving in the back of the book there, and that the largest church was 50 grand, and you know, we keep the 35.6 cents, you know, it takes a pretty major increase to really move the needle. So working down the page here, I won't go through every line here, but I'm just going to again hit the highlights. We've got other income of $10,000 from some different sources, rental income, so forth, and you'll see in that on the page 115, in order to we are presenting to you a balanced budget, if you will, a break-even spending plan. In order to do that, and I'll go through some of the fixed expenses here in a moment and wrap up, but in order to do that and present to you a break-even spending plan, we're using reserves of $17,000 for that 7-month stub period, and $25,000, I believe, for the full 12-month period ending January 31st, 2020. In fact, there's just nowhere else to get there. We have the 1,460,000 mission support. So that if you go through the Churchwide and seminaries and Lutheran campus ministry support that we pass along, you know, we're left with $546,000. Again, based on an optimistic spending or mission support number. So that's what we have to work with, roughly $550,000. Well, we have, kind of working down the sheet here, some other ministry partner benevolence, Regions 5 support, the Wisconsin Council of Churches, Lutheran Outdoor Ministry, you know, some things like that, Lutheran Planned Giving, that we're obligated to provide benevolence, just like in your congregation. So that's another $15,000. So now we're down to about just about 530,000, and then we come to our staff expenses. And if you spend any time around the Synod, we're not overstaffed. There's things that frankly probably don't get done that we'd like to get done, but they're just not. You know, we talked about, you know, Carolyn's working essentially full time and getting paid for a lot less than that. So the staffing cost, that full amount is in that 12-month period, $401,000, and that's fully loaded. And so $400,000, we have, you know, the bishop's assistant, communications and event manager, and a full-time administrative assistant, and then a half-time assistant that Carolyn sits in that desk at the moment. And so that's a fully loaded number. And so if you do the math there's not a whole lot you can, you know, unless you reconfigure the whole staff a little bit differently, there's not a whole lot you can do there. So if you take off the $400-some thousand from there, we're left with, based on my math, $112,000 to really, you know, what's left over after the things I talked about. On that staffing, we're In my mind at least, we are at Synod guidelines. And so the compensation guidelines for 2019 that you passed earlier this morning allowed for a 2% COLA increase, cost of living increase, and the $786 step increase. And that's what we're projecting in our budget here to get to the $401,000 for the staff for that 12-month period. One thing we haven't talked about is Bishop's vehicle. Right now we purchased a vehicle that Mary uses. It did not make sense to lease a vehicle. We don't have a leasing cost in the spending plan. If depending on who's elected here and where they live in proximity to the Synod, we'll readdress that. Do we lease a car? Does it make more sense to do that, or buy a car? And so that's just these things are another variable here. One of the reasons why we didn't, why there's just so many different things that are going on here that it's hard to predict. So after staffing, after everything I've talked about thus far, we're down to about $110,000 left. Well, we have an office to run. We have rent to pay. We have accounting and audit fees. Those total about $60,000. We need a place to operate there. We've signed a 7-year lease, I believe. The accounting and audit, we're required to do an audit for Churchwide, and obviously we need to have accounting help, and Becky does a great job. We contract with Becky to do that. She does all the real work, frankly. And so that's $60,000 is essentially fixed cost as well. So if you subtract that off, then you assume the rest of the office expenses, telephone, technology, computer, insurance, those type of things. The total office budget there on the bottom of page 20 or 116 is about $94,000. And so if you take that off the 112 I just spoke about, we've got $19,000 left. And so what do we do with that $19,000? How do we, what do we have to accomplish with that? Well, I won't go through every line, but committees, leadership support, professional leaders in education, some programs, youth ministry. It's all based on kind of historical numbers and where we're at. And so there's just not, there's not a whole lot left to do some more creative things and so forth. And so, and I won't go through every detail. You'll notice in here that we don't have the assist program in here. That was an expense. Arden is retiring, and so we're going to address that differently. And so if we had that in here, the story would actually be even worse. So the last couple points here is that you'll see in the 2017 that 7-month stub period through July through January 31st, 2019, we have a bishop's installation that we need to budget for. Walter May at Churchwide tells us that's $25,000. We have budgeted 18. I don't know what it should be, based on, we had Mary's installation was done on the cheap, if you will, through a lot of volunteer work and effort and donations. So hopefully, it just depends who's elected and how we deal with that. And so there's that expense in that stub period. And so at the end of the day, we're at a break-even budget or a break-even spending plan for both of those periods. But one last point is, one thing you don't see in here is the cost of this assembly, the cost of lead, the cost of bishop's convocation, essentially a pastoral retreat in the fall. All those need to be break-even type of things. And so when you're paying for registration for this event, we've been criticized in the past that you essentially need to pay to vote for the bishop here because you need to pay for registration here at the assembly. Yeah, I don't apologize. That's the case. We need to pay to be able to put this on. Vicki does a great job in recruiting the exhibitors into the next hall over there to help defray some of the cost. And so, but everything, all these things need to break even. We don't make money on any of these events. It's quite the contrary. Hopefully we do okay on some, we lose a little bit on others. At the end of the day, we break even, hopefully, but that's reality. There's lots of reasons we don't do confirmation extravaganza anymore, and we won't do it again for a lot of different reasons. But one of them was just to be able to have an affordable cost for the kids to attend, and a venue a bit large enough and volunteers enough to do it, pull it off. It just wasn't making sense anymore. So obviously tomorrow you can ask questions about the spending plan, but there's three things you can really revisit to change. It's mission support, which we've got $1,460,000 there. Probably optimistic, definitely faith-based in my opinion. We can revisit the 52% churchwide. Certainly not a popular thing to revisit, given that we just did it 2 years ago. Or you can look at the staff cost, the $400,000 there, but you'd have to have a pretty major restructuring to really impact that. And so there's really, those are really the three, in my mind, the three areas that you can really impact the spending plan. So in closing, it's not an uplifting report. It's not the message I want to send, and I think it's too late for some of these candidates to pull out. But there's definitely challenges, and so I don't mean to be. I'm just trying to deliver the message here. And quite honestly, I think one of the questions we need to ask and nobody has the right answers, and these candidates aren't going to have all the answers. They don't have all the facts. But I think some of the questions tomorrow is maybe more synod specific. What's your vision for the synod, and how can you confront some of these challenges? And I don't think it's fair for them to have complete answers. I'm not saying that, but I do think that hopefully those are some questions that get asked tomorrow. So that's I've taken enough time, but it's just in the past I've kind of given some superficial reports and said that hey, things are fine, and we do have reserves. We have $100,000 of reserves here, so it's not like we're not turning out the lights tomorrow, but it's definitely the current trajectory is not sustainable, is my message. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. So later this afternoon, we are offering a couple opportunities. We're calling them hearings to gather, learn about, and discuss both the proposed spending plan as well as the draft of the ELCA Social Statement on Women and Justice. Hearing for the purposes of this assembly to inform you about those things. There's two listed. I think the way things are going, we will have one opportunity. You can attend either a hearing with Bruce on the spending plan to have further discussion about that, or LOPPW Director Reverend Cindy Crane will lead the discussion on the Women and Justice Social Statement. So those are going on this afternoon. We'll have more chance to look deeper at some of those things. Tough stuff. All right. Just quickly, if someone found a pair of silver-rimmed prescription glasses, please turn them into the registration desk. So if you found glasses anywhere, turn them in to the registration desk. And now I know there are ballots ready, so I'm going to turn this over to Rafael Malpica, and he will lead us in the next stage of the bishop's election process.
Thank you, Bishop. On the second ballot, all the names that appeared on the first ballot and received legal votes will appear on the second ballot unless the person withdrew his or her name. You will vote for one person by typing in a number on your voting machine that corresponds with the number next to their name on the sheet that you will soon receive. On the second ballot, just as on the first, 75% of the legal ballot cast are necessary for election. If there is no election, the third ballot will contain the names of the 7 nominees plus ties who received the most legal votes on the second ballot. As a heads up, prior to the third ballot, if there is no election, you will hear from the nominees. The process will be presentations involving the 7 nominees plus ties who will be on the third ballot. The third ballot is scheduled for Sunday during the 9:30 a.m. session. We heard the fourth report of the Credential Committee as of 1:20 p.m. today, with a total number of voting members at 425. So you are receiving now the sheet containing the names for the nominees on the second ballot for bishop. I need to make an announcement. If you look at the sheet, number 13 and 14, Pastor Richard Collier and Pastor Rebecca Ninke did submit their form to withdraw their name. Unfortunately, it was submitted a bit late, and therefore their names continue on the ballot. But they did submit the form with the intent to remove their names. So that is number 13 and number 14. Are there any questions? I call on Judy Noldi for a word of prayer.
Let us pray. Draw your church together, O God, into one great company of witnesses, together following our teacher, Jesus Christ, into every walk of life, together serving in Christ's mission to the world, and together witnessing to your love wherever you will send us. Let the wind and fire of your Spirit enliven and direct our decisions here today. We stand before you as your people claimed by grace. Bless each of the nominees on this ballot and the members of this assembly. Guide us all in a common discernment process. Touch our hearts and minds now so that we may respond to your will and follow your guidance. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Please turn on your voting devices. Remember, you will use your voting machine to enter a number that matches the number next to the name of the nominee you wish to vote for. After you have punched in the number, you will be able to see the number of the vote you cast. Please take the time to double-check your vote before you press enter. If you press the wrong number, please raise your hand and a page will help clear your machine and allow you to revote. Are you ready to vote? Please vote now. I want everyone to double check the number they voted for with the number on the screen or on their sheet. If they match, you're okay. If they don't match, please raise your hands. I declare the second ballot for the election of the Bishop of the South Central Synod of Wisconsin closed. I return the chair to Bishop Froilan.
You've got more ballots ready? Do you want me to do that or go to the mission investment? Or the... I'm getting word that we may have some more ballots and we can continue with some voting.
This one is a written one that they're going to hand out. So I don't know if it's going to be on the screen, but they're going to give a sheet.
Okay. The pages are handing out written ballot for Churchwide Assembly voting members, clergy males. Word, right? That's what you have? Okay. We have 7 nominees for Churchwide Assembly voting members in the clergy ordained male category. You may vote for 2. The names of the nominees may be on the screen. The names of the nominees are on your ballots.
I'll give you the ballots.
Yeah, give me a ballot so I can read them off. Have you vote for 2? And does everybody have a ballot? No, we're going to wait.
Clarify, this tells them they'll vote for 2 and then choose an
Right.
X next to it.
Your ballot says vote for blank. The blank should say 2. And then you could put an X next to the names. I'll read them in a minute when everybody has their ballots. Anyone not have a ballot yet? Or, okay, or a page in your vicinity? Got a bunch more we need back here. And in the way back. What do you need? Anyone else need ballots? Raise your hands quickly. I think we got it all. Okay, just a reminder, we are voting for 2 of these. I'll read the names. Number 1, Reverend Peter Heidi. 2, Reverend Eric Jelinek. 3, Reverend Brian Lagerstam. 4, Reverend Brent Walsworth. 5, Reverend Michael Short. 6, Reverend Doug Locken. 7, Reverend Matthew Polk. Put an X by 2, do not fold them, and when you have completed, I will have you pass them to the right, my left. Are we doing any more elections?
They don't need to be in here. We actually have to break. Oh, yeah, that's fine. We still have MIF. Did you ever get some? If he doesn't get some,
I have no idea.
do you know where he is?
No.
No.
Is,
Yeah, it's a machine vote. We have one machine vote.
okay, we have 1 machine vote left.
Stay up.
Which one is that, Robin? Okay, getting those ballots turned in. Election committee members, when we get to the break, please go to the Ebony room so you can start counting. Any more out ballots left out yet? Okay, what's next? All right.
This will be on machines.
This will be on machines. This is Churchwide Assembly Clergy Ordained Female. We have 6 nominees for Churchwide Assembly voting members. Clergy Ordained Females, you may vote for 2 nominees. The names of the nominees will be on the screen. Okay, here they are. Make sure your machines are on and ready to go. Choose 2 when I read them, or after I read them. They are Reverend Tracy Moss, Reverend Susan Schneider, Reverend May Jean Zelli, Reverend Nancy Robbie, Reverend Sue Beadle, and Reverend Lucy Weinard. Weinard. Thank you. Brand new. Nice to meet you. And you may vote now for 2. All right, voting is closed. Do we see those now, or will we get that? Okay, we can. And how many do they need to be elected? Because we're voting for 2. Is it the top 2? I don't know. Mr. Parliamentarian. What is, if we're voting for 2, they can't both get, well, they could both get majority. Okay, so what did, and then the top 4 would go forward if they, okay, let's see what we've got for our, and what's the number I need for a majority? 383, so that's 182, a majority? 192, was I close? Okay, let's see what we got.
Can we see the results, please?
Okay, we do not have an election, so A, B, C, and D will move forward. Reverend Tracy Moss, Reverend Susan Schneider, Reverend May-Jean Zelli, and Reverend Nancy Robbie. So we're going to vote for them now. And you will vote for 2, and we should be able to get 2 to have a majority. And I'll wait till they cross off the ones who are no longer on here. E, F are crossed off. So A, Tracy Moss, B, Susan Schneider, C, May-Jean Zelli, D, Nancy Robbie. You may vote now.
We're up to 390.
And we'll close voting and see what we've got. Good. Are they in order? Okay. And so Reverend Susan Schneider and Reverend May-Jean Zelli are elected on this ballot. We will have more ballots for you in a little while. A couple quick, do we have Dick Ware from the Mission Investment Fund ready to go? He is here. Welcome. Another of our mission partners and a sponsor of our coffee breaks, Mission Investment Fund. Dick Ware is our new representative from MIF. First met him at our Synod Lead event in March. We had a delightful conversation there, and I'm pleased to introduce him to you today. Take it away.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity to greet you on behalf of your ministry partners at the Mission Investment Fund. I'm Pastor Dick Wares, now in my 4th month as your regional manager from MIF. 30 years ago, as a newly ordained associate pastor, I was blessed to witness the transformation of a congregation I was serving. Christ Lutheran was in a fast-growing suburb, but the congregation had hit a plateau in its own growth. The key to its being transformed was a building project that finally gave it the worship space and learning space and service space that it needed. And the key to that building project was a loan provided by the Mission Investment Fund. I've been an ardent fan of the MIF ever since. What a joy it is to be called all these years later to be a partner in this ministry with you. And I'm eager to meet you and learn how MIF might be helpful to your ministry as well. This brief video we're going to show will say more about MIF's mission and purpose and the partnership we share in Christ Jesus.
What does it mean to be a partner in ministry? At the Mission Investment Fund, we believe it means being at your
Sorry, Dick. Eh. Boy, I'd hate to. I'm so glad I get to be up front and not worrying about all that technology at the back table. Here we go.
Side.
No, we don't.
Plan B, stop by my table and say hi.
You probably just scored more points than anyone else here today. Do you have chocolate at your table?
What does it mean
Mints,
to be a
that's
partner
just
in
fine.
ministry?
We are actually going to move into our break time, hearing time, choir rehearsal, worship meeting, all of that sort of thing going on. We are at the 2:45 to 3:15 time slot for a hearing. You can go to either the spending plan or the Women in Justice hearing. That's Salon E, Salon F. Are people making, is that right? And choir rehearsal is here, worship meeting is here. And then workshop sessions at 3:20 to 4:20. They are on your gold sheets in your packets. And we will be back here at 4:30. No, why are people shaking their heads at me? What? Oh, do we have a report already? No. It was an electronic vote. Do we have a report on Bishop Ballot 2? Jeff has it. It's yours. Don't leave yet. I think we have a report. I thought we didn't. Darren and Jeff are not here. That's the problem. We don't have it yet. But we need it so the bishop nominees know where they go. You know it? Well, the chair isn't here. Is the chair around? Jeff Cherwinka? If you can find, it's back this way. Can we just have our Churchwide rep, can you report on them? You know the answer. Can you share it or not? Did you get it from Jeff Cherwinka? Did you get this report from Jeff Cherwinka? From the chair? You got it from him, so I would think that is chain of evidence or something. I bet it's constitutional. Is it, Dave? Okay, David says it's constitutional. Go for it. Oh, it won't be on the screen, though.
It won't be on the screen?
It won't be on the screen because the screen guy's not here. Use your sheets and we will tell you who it is.
Okay. There was no election on this ballot. The name of the 7 nominees that received the most votes will continue on to the 3rd ballot. I want to remind those 7 nominees, when you hear your name, that you should meet with the Bishop Election Task Force in the Mangrove room at 2:45 today. And the names are Stephen Kotke, 145, Karen Loken, 46, Vivian Thomas Brightfeld, 42, Katia Uchakov, 31, Timothy Hansen, 29, Libby Howe, 20, May Jean Selle, 16, Lisa Nelson, 14, and Michael Lee, 13. Oh. First 7. 1, 2, 3. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
You have them, right?
Yes. Do you want me to repeat that again? Stephen Kotke, 145. Karen Loken, 46. Vivian Thomas Brightfeld, 42. Katia Uchakov, 31. Timothy Hansen, 29. Libby Howe, 20. And
May Jean
May
Selle.
Jean Selle or Selle, 16.
Okay.
Okay?
Those are the top 7. They will move on tomorrow morning at 9:30 is the next time we'll hear from them. And he has one more thing.
We want to thank the pastors that made themselves available as nominee and now leave this election process. We thank you with the words from 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 1 and 2. Now, as an elder myself and witness of the sufferings of Christ, as well as one who shares in the glory to be revealed, I exhort the elders among you to tend the flock of God that is in your charge, exercising the oversight not under compulsion, but willingly, as God would have you do it. So thank you for making yourself available to this whole process.
And I think we thank you. You're free to go to breaks, breakout session times. There's a variety of places to be. Visit the displays, and we'll see you back here ready to go at 4:30.